Did you know when a film spent $12 million on its first 24 minutes, turned the surf red, and was still only halfway to showing you what actually happened on that beach? That was Saving Private Ryan, Steven Spielberg, 1998. The setup is brutal in its simplicity. A squad of Army Rangers gets sent deep into occupied France to pull out one man, Private James Francis Ryan, because three of his brothers are already dead and nobody wants his mother burying a fourth. It stars Tom Hanks, Tom Sizemore, Edward Burns, Barry Pepper, Adam Goldberg, Giovanni Ribisi, Vin Diesel, and Jeremy Davies, plus Matt Damon as the one guy 8 soldiers have to march across Normandy to find. Today we're counting down 15 weird facts about this movie, and stick around for number 1, a scene you've watched a dozen times and completely misread. Before we drop into the landing craft, hit like and subscribe. Alright, lock and load. Let's move out. Number 15. So, the government set up a hotline. Filming the landing on the actual Normandy beaches was never happening. That sand is protected memorial ground. So the production decamped to Ballinesker Beach in County Wexford, Ireland, and built the nightmare from scratch, a spot Mel Gibson pointed Spielberg toward after Braveheart. They spent roughly $12 million, close to a fifth of the entire budget, on about 24 minutes with barely any dialogue. Well over 1,000 extras, many Irish Army reservists, buried the beach in Czech hedgehogs, smoke, and mannequins, fitted real amputee performers with prosthetics, and rigged live charges, so the sand actually detonated around the actors. The surf ran red, and it worked a little too well. The realism dragged World War II veterans straight back, and the Department of Veterans Affairs had to set up a hotline to handle the fallout. Calls blew past 100, more than they'd heard from vets in years. Number 14. A $3,000 short film bought him a career. Before Vin Diesel was driving cars out of airplanes, he was an actor in New York who couldn't get a callback. The industry had no box for him. Too big for one part, wrong ethnicity for another, multiracial in a decade that didn't know what to do with that. So in 1995 he stopped waiting and wrote, directed, produced, scored, and starred in his own short, Multifacial, about a guy going audition to audition being told he's not quite right for anything. It landed at Cannes, helped finance his first feature, and a couple years later made its way to Spielberg. He didn't call Diesel in to read. He wrote a part into Saving Private Ryan just for him, Private Caparzo, the warmest guy in the squad. $3,000 and 3 days, arguably the best return on investment in Hollywood history. Number 13. The cinematographer won an Oscar for making this movie look worse. Modern lenses are built to flatter, with coatings that tame light and kill flares. Janusz Kaminski had those coatings stripped clean off, so flares blow out, contrast goes flat, and the image turns hazy, while staying in focus. He wasn't going for beautiful, he was going for 1940s newsreel, the desaturated combat footage cameraman actually shot. Robert Capa's blurred D-Day stills fed into it too, though half are blurry only because a darkroom assistant melted the negatives, drying them. Kaminski also cut the shutter angle, so motion turned sharp and jittery instead of smooth, and ran the film through a bleach bypass, draining the color until everything went cold and metallic. Every close-up of Hanks on that beach is stripped of polish. No soft light, no movie star glow, just a terrified man who doesn't want to be there. Number 12. The casting decision changed by an unusual fear. Billy Bob Thornton had just won a screenwriting Oscar for Sling Blade when the Horvath role came his way, and he reportedly turned it down because he's afraid of water, a problem for weeks on a cold Irish beach buried in surf and explosions. Thornton has talked for years about a whole collection of strange phobias, antique furniture among them, so passing on a war epic over the ocean is weirdly on brand. Horvath went to Tom Sizemore instead, who showed up with baggage of his own, a serious substance abuse problem Spielberg already knew about. He hired him anyway on terms strange enough to earn their own spot later in this countdown. Number 11. The lunch meeting that changed everything. Matt Damon had already auditioned for Ryan and got passed over. That's usually where the story ends. Then Robin Williams happened. While the Good Will Hunting cast rehearsed in Boston, Williams walked Damon and Ben Affleck over to meet Spielberg, who was in town. Spielberg said he recognized Damon, who mentioned Courage Under Fire, the exact performance Spielberg had told his wife he wanted for Ryan, except that guy looked too thin. What he didn't know was that Damon had dropped 40 pounds to play a heroin addict in that film and put it all back on since. The gaunt soldier on screen and the guy standing in front of him were the same person, and so were the actor Spielberg wanted and the one he'd just passed on. The man walked two friends to lunch, and one of them left with the biggest war movie of the decade. Number 10. A Russian tank in a German costume. The tigers in the final battle are fakes, and if you know tanks, you can tell. Real German Tiger ones are practically priceless museum pieces now. There's exactly one running original left on the planet. In 1998, CGI couldn't fake a tank this central without looking cartoonish, so the effects team built Tiger shells over Soviet T-34 chassis. Convincing to most of us, but to armor nerds it's a giveaway. The road wheels sit in a straight line instead of the Tiger's interlock setup, and the silhouette's wrong. At least one of those fakes, nicknamed Forrest, still turns up at World War II Living History weekends, its road wheels still dented from the effects charges. On the Tigers, even Saving Private Ryan had to blink. Number 9. No storyboards, no plan, no second chances. For the Omaha Beach sequence, Spielberg, famous for meticulous planning, drew up no storyboards at all. Instead, he told his camera operators to chase the action live, the way a real combat photographer would, never knowing where the next blast was coming from. That's why this sequence never feels choreographed. The camera lurches and scrambles to find the action again. He also shot the film in order, beach first, which he called mentally demoralizing. As characters died, those actors packed up and went home, so the squad on set kept physically shrinking. Number 8. A whole fake town undone by one white button. Ramel, the French town where the squad makes its last stand, never existed. The production took over a shut-down British aerospace site at Hatfield and built a 3-block ruined town from scratch, trucking in real rubble so fresh construction looked shelled for years. Then some local teenagers found an unguarded footpath onto the property and climbed onto a parked military vehicle, assuming it was a prop. It was not. One kid started mashing buttons, hit a white one, and the half-track roared to life and lurched forward. Sirens, jeeps, and dogs followed, and the teens sprinted for the fence. The set wasn't torn down afterward. A few years later, it became the main backlit for Band of Brothers. Quick pause. If you've ever rewound the Omaha Beach landing just to figure out how they pulled it off, you're exactly who this channel's for. Drop your most memorable moment in the comments, like the video, subscribe, and hang on. Number 1 genuinely changes how you watch this movie. Number 7. The casualties Hollywood couldn't fake, so it didn't. Late 90s CGI couldn't sell limb loss at that scale, and fake limbs on able-bodied extras always moved wrong, so the production hired real amputees. 20 to 30 amputees and men with spinal injuries were cast as soldiers and fitted with prosthetics rigged to blow on cue, so a limb coming off on screen read as exactly what it was. It stirred controversy in Ireland, but the performers themselves mostly told a different story. Well paid, glad to be part of the cast, proud of the work. A movie built to show what that beach did to bodies got its truth from men already living their own version of it. Number 6. The brother everyone buried came home. The plot spark comes from the Nyland brothers of Tonawanda, New York. Edward, Preston, Robert, and Fritz. Edward's B-25 went down over Burma, and he was presumed dead. Then Robert was killed on D-Day, and Preston died the next day, leaving Fritz as, seemingly, the only brother left. Here's where the movie and the truth split. On screen, Ryan lives and most of the men sent for him don't. But in May 1945, the Nyland family learned Edward was alive. He'd survived the jungle, been captured, and spent nearly a year in a POW camp before coming home skin and bone. The movie lets one of 4 brothers make it back. The real family got 2 to number 5. The sound effect that veterans never forgot. Most war movies recycle stock gunfire, but sound designer Gary Rydstrom took his team out to record actual period weapons, so every gun had a voice that existed nowhere else. The one that mattered most was the German MG-42, firing around 1,200 rounds a minute. So fast the shots smear into one tearing noise the men who faced it called Hitler's zipper. Rydstrom got it exact enough that veterans recognize it instantly decades later. 2 of the film's 5 Oscars went to sound. Number 4. Two big stars almost played the wrong role. Before Hanks, both Harrison Ford and Mel Gibson were seriously in the running for Captain Miller. Both had spent years building reputations on heroic competence, so casting either one would have made you fairly sure the lead walks out alive. Hanks broke that deal. Miller is a high school English teacher handed a rifle and a war he never signed up for, with a hand that won't stop shaking. Spielberg balked at the idea of his all-American everyman mowing down enemy soldiers, and Hanks could barely believe they wanted him for it. What squared it was Hanks deciding the character's fear was the engine behind every choice Miller makes. So when Miller dies, it lands like an ordinary man who is never supposed to be on that bridge. The whole point the movie is making about everyone who didn't come home. Number 3. Reverse method acting. Make everyone else suffer. Matt Damon skipped boot camp, and that was Spielberg's plan all along. The rest of the core cast endured a week of historically accurate misery run by Captain Dale Dye. Marches under 40-plus pounds of gear, 3 hours of sleep, cold ground, and hours learning to fire real weapons, all in 7 straight days of rain. Edward Burns called it the worst experience of his life, and after 3 days the group actually voted to quit. Hanks talked them back off the ledge. Damon, meanwhile, was home with real food and a real bed, then strolled onto set rested and cheerful to join 8 men who'd just suffered together. The resentment the squad shows Ryan on screen wasn't all acting. Spielberg made everyone standing next to Damon suffer instead. Number 2. One failed test from a total reshoot. Tom Sizemore's contract had an almost unprecedented clause: a drug test every single day of the 58-day shoot. Fail 1, and every scene he'd already filmed would be reshot from scratch with a new actor. Sizemore walked into this carrying a substance problem that had already torched other jobs, and turned down Terrence Malick's The Thin Red Line to be here. He passed every test, every day, start to finish, playing Sergeant Horvath, the steadiest man in the squad. The performance is widely considered the best he ever gave, and the squad's chemistry earned a Screen Actors Guild Ensemble nomination. Number 1. 2 words you were never meant to catch. During the landing, 2 soldiers come out of a German position with their hands up, and the GIs, running on pure adrenaline, shoot them anyway. For decades, people read that scene as simple fog of war. Nearly everyone read it wrong. Those 2 men weren't speaking German. They were speaking Czech, saying, in effect, "Please don't shoot, I'm not German, I didn't kill anyone." They were conscripts, men from occupied Eastern Europe forced into German uniforms. Spielberg refused to subtitle it, dropping you into the exact position of the American soldiers. You hear something you can't parse and you move on. Once you know the words, the scene flips. It stops being battlefield chaos and becomes 2 men gunned down mid-sentence while explaining they were never the enemy. You didn't get a subtitle. Neither did the men pulling the triggers. That's the whole terrible point, and there you have it. 15 weird facts about Saving Private Ryan. Which fact hit you hardest? Drop it in the comments, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, at ease, soldier. This is Remember When.